Hold your. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Right. So now let's start with the motivation. We must do that. However, you know, elevated we may be feeling for one reason or another, whether it's Goa, air, or whatever it is, various events or substances. I hope none of us are on any sort of powerful substances. But, there may be many ways in which we stop seeing things so clearly. And when we do that, when we're not seeing clearly, we begin to forget or completely forget some of the very basic teachings of Lord Buddha. And as you know, and I'm sure all of you know, although the Buddha had an ecstatic experience, you could say, or ecstatic's not quite the word, I think, but he had a totally mind-opening, trying to find language which isn't too, cliched or new agey. Anyway, he had a completely awakened experience, right, which is the ending of all sorrow. So if he'd been a certain kind of, if he'd not been enlightened and he'd had a kind of awakening experience, he might have gone around like some people do nowadays, speaking about bliss and happiness and it's far out and, joy, 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 smile, smile, smile. But what's the first teaching he gives? Lord Buddha. And that after, he had just thought at one point that he wouldn't teach at all because it was just all too difficult, right? So he thought, I can't teach, this to people, they're not going to understand. Anyway, having been persuaded that he should teach, what's the first thing he teaches? Of course, it's something, not only something we can get at, we can begin to understand it. It's totally in line with our own experience, yeah? And out of his great compassion, that's what he taught first, isn't it? That all is unsatisfactory, is dukkha, is a contraction of spaciousness into something claustrophobic and suffering and grasping and painful because of that grasping. Yeah. So that's what he teaches first. So in our motivation, we always remember that one way or another. Because we do say, don't we, that we must generate a sense of love and compassion. So why love and compassion? Well, love and compassion because that's what the world, human beings, animals, all beings need the most, don't you think? That's what we need to be happy. That's what babies need to grow up properly, for their brains even to grow properly. According to modern science, they need the affection of the mother, some basic fundamental level of affection is needed. Otherwise, they just don't grow up properly. And we see the result of many people who don't receive proper nourishment, inner and outer nourishment when they're young, many of them become very warped, wounded individuals. Some of them become killers, or at the very least holding a grudge against the world and having very painful, negative lives, So we always come back to love and compassion as the motivation, but also we have to remember the wisdom side, because it's the wisdom that cuts through at a very basic level the very, very foundation of anger, attachment, and so forth, which are coming from the ignorance. The reason we exaggerate qualities in objects, the reason we project falsely onto objects is because of the lack of wisdom. So it's not enough to have love and compassion. That's wonderful, but we also need the wisdom, realizing that the beings that we are loving and feeling compassionate towards, and our enemies and everyone, things we like and dislike, none of them are having any kind of total solid self-identity from their own side. And so therefore there's no reason to grasp at them in an unreasonable way. It doesn't mean we don't love and have compassion for beings and help them when they, fall over and get cut or are afraid. Of course, we help beings, but on another level, as we were talking about towards the end of yesterday's session, everything is like a dream. It is like a dream experience. I mean, I was in this warm room yesterday in Goa, in this little guest house in Goa. And now I'm completely different. It's nice to be home. But it's just very different. Yesterday is like a dream. Yesterday is like a dream. It's not a total dream, although some interpretations might say it is really not very different from a dream at all. A nighttime dream, that is. But anyway, in the sense that I, had to pay for things that I bought on the way, and that I got off the plane at Ahmedabad and sat there for an hour and a half, and and there seemed to be other people there too, sitting there. So there was some kind of reality, but it's also like a dream, like a dream. So we need to remember these things during the motivation. A tremendous sense of sadness at living beings, their situation, because we have so much potential, don't we? So much potential. And yet, where does it go? Are we using it? These incredibly brainy, intelligent people, so many of them are just involved in, for example, producing weapons of destruction, or engaged in technology, or many other things which are not helping humanity so much. Or technology is another things that are easy to misuse. Let's put it that way. We are so clever that we keep on, we don't know where to stop. Let's say that. There is a wisdom in knowing where to stop, where enough is enough. But perhaps we don't know that. Anyway, the long-winded way of saying that our motivation for practice together, the reason why we come and spend our time together on these Zoom sessions, which is very kind of all of you, I'm really very grateful. The reason we do that is because we see the need for not only more kindness, affection, tenderness, love, compassion, not only that, but we see the need for more wisdom, for more insight, in those extraordinary words of Mary Oliver that one has mentioned again and again. There are people and things and places that we love very much. We feel very attached to them, right? And we want to hold them very tight, as though our life depends on it, she says. We want to hold very tight to people, of course, to places, to fame, to whatever, our favorite books or teddy bears. But then she says, when the time comes to let it go, then we have to let it go. We have to let go. So this kind of insight, this kind of wisdom, doesn't have to be the highest wisdom, but just understanding a little bit more about change, impermanence is so important, isn't it? Because it's so easy to not understand, or to misunderstand, or get angry at people and situations, when actually what is happening is just things change and we can't cope with it. We want things to be a certain way. It's as though, we want it to be everlasting spring or everlasting autumn. It's gonna change, spring into summer, autumn into winter, whatever. But it's very difficult for us, because if there's something that gives us pleasure or enjoyment, we don't want to let go. So you see all of the people in front of us here on your screen, all these rectangles are human beings who want to be happy, don't want to suffer. They want to receive and to give affection and kindness. Remember, that's the definition of a warrior, according to Chogyam Trungpa. Not only tremendous courage, but tremendous gentleness, tremendous tenderness there in the warrior, the spiritual warrior. So all of these people here, potential warriors, potentially very tender, caring, wise people, are, in terms of impermanence, they're not going to be there for much longer, or at least not in your life or my life. There's going to be so many changes. I mean, just from one Zoom session to another, so many different faces, some different people. So then sometimes you get attached to somebody who's attending and you want them to attend the next session and they're not there. So that's a great teaching. It's just a great teaching whether you want them to be there or not. They're just people come, people go. That's the nature of things for very good reasons. Not because, we always think I am the center of the universe. So why is this person here or not here or whatever? That's ridiculous. Putting oneself at the center of the universe like that. So there's a very long-winded motivation, but it's important. But let's remember the bottom line, which is that all beings like me and you want to be happy, don't want to suffer. So how wonderful it would be if we could bring more happiness and joy and the causes of that, right, into people's lives and into our own life. What are the causes of happiness? Good intention, positive intention, love and compassion, united with wisdom. Actions that come from that kind of mindset are going to bring happy, positive, wholesome kind of experiences, feelings, situations in future. As well as one can see the effects quite, immediately in some cases. So how wonderful if one could also help beings to be free from suffering. And not just how wonderful, but as the immeasurable prayer says in the Mahayana tradition, I myself, that's what it says, I myself will enable beings to be free of suffering and its causes. I'm not going to leave it to somebody else, to the government or some NGO all the time. I'm going to do what I can. And on the aspirational level, of course, for now, no one is pretending they can go out and change everything now. But as the teachers keep on reminding us, the aspiration is so important. Really having a strong aspiration to be able to do that. And then also to avoid arrogance, perhaps, but also since our situation now is that we cannot do very much on our own, the last part of this prayer is to say, not only I myself will enable beings to be free of happiness, free of suffering and its causes, but please, gurus, Buddhas, please bestow your inspiring strength. Please bestow your inspiring strength to enable me to do this. Inspiring strength equals, another word, blessings, which is inspiring strength. That's modern phraseology, which I think is useful. Blessings, for some people, it's too spiritual or religious, So blessing is none other than a kind of inspiring strength that you get. You can, in that sense, you can be blessed by somebody you respect, or even I was in the market today. It was quite funny, but moving to the electrical shop, the people we call when either we have work to be done at Tushita Center or at my home. So the man there, who's often very kind of, he's very busy, and he comes across sometimes very gruff, very tough, just a hard sort of businessman. But today he said, I want your blessing. I said, what? And he was pointing to his head. I said, what blessing, what blessing can I give, And I was kind of making a joke. He said, no, he was serious. So I was thinking the Tibetan way, to touch my head with his. He wanted me to pat his head with my hands. I did. But you see, blessing is a kind of, one can call it a kind of happy exchange of energy when there's a kind of, yeah, a respect from one side, especially. But of course, while that was happening, I also felt very, very, very close to him, for the first time, as I patted his head on my way to buy bread. So, yeah, blessings. So we ask the Gurus and Buddhas, please bestow your inspiring strength, your blessings to enable me to do this. Because it's a huge job to help beings be free of suffering and its causes, right? You might say, oh, I'm helping someone be free of their suffering by helping them with their illness, or with even some other, dramatic drama, family drama happening. You really help them out of it. But have you helped them out of the causes of that kind of suffering? No, we haven't helped them to be free of ignorance, anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, etc. So that's the big one, right? Causes of suffering. So we can only do that when we are very realized ourselves, and we have a deep understanding based on the magic trio of listening, reflecting, and meditating. Or you could say studying, discussing, reflecting, and then meditation, deep meditation. That's the only way we can become qualified to be true beneficiaries of others. Sorry, benefactors of others. So that's what we aspire to, really, in our heart of hearts. So one has these sessions together, and sometimes they just happen as a kind of a ritual, maybe, but actually the reason for them is very profound. If you ask my teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or often he says, what's the meaning of life? So he makes no bones about it. He said the meaning of life, the purpose of life is to not only benefit others, but to lead everybody to full awakening of a Buddha. That's the purpose of life. In the sense, that is the highest that we can achieve. So therefore, that's the purpose, not just purpose to find our little nest and be comfortable and make enough money and, be insured, etc., etc., and have children who look after us, etc. That's maybe wonderful, but that's not the total meaning of life. One could have that, but on top of that, one needs to have this aspiration to highest awakening for the sake of all sentient beings, even the people that right now, we most, perhaps, most detest for whatever reason, on ideological grounds or personal grounds or whatever. So let's spend a few moments with the posture, and for you to reflect on all this blah blah I've been uttering on motivation. Spend some time for yourself to make a very strong and meaningful motivation, which is for this session, but also, of course, for the rest of the evening, and something that we feel is worthwhile having long term, perhaps for our whole life. Who knows? So please spend some time on that. Spend 5 minutes on the motivation today, so it becomes a kind of analytical practice in itself. And now we can think to ourselves, without a mind that is somewhat focused and tamed, stabilized, without that, our intention to help others and lead them to enlightenment is nothing but a joke. So therefore, I need to have a combination of stability as well as, of course, the wisdom and the compassion. So let's, since we have some time, I hope everybody has some time, we'll also spend 5 or 6 minutes now with the breath awareness practice, simply being aware of breath and the spaciousness of the out breath, where we can let go and relax a little bit, and where we can also keep in mind that thoughts and so forth will keep on arising. So to recognize them when they arise and not get caught up in them, however seductive they are. There may be desire, maybe anger, maybe all kinds of things can make us begin to churn mentally. So just gently let go and come back to the breath, and then relaxing with the out breath. This is not only a way of beginning, bringing focus, but it's a way of connecting with the heart, connecting with ourselves, making friends with ourselves. So let's practice this. Stillness in body, relaxed in body and mind, not uptight, and focused, attentive. So, our daily life, I think, is always containing reminders of the motivation and of Buddha's First Noble Truth. Just one personal anecdote before we get on with the text. I said I was in Goa recently and my mind was very happy, seeing old friends. The weather was great, the food was great, everything was going very well, and did throughout the visit. But at one point I was going to visit a very kind man who had helped my father a lot in the last few months before he died in Goa. He'd also been the milkman, and then he helped my father, just like an amazing nurse. The man of many trades and skills, very skilled with paperwork and makes designs and patterns and flowers out of paper and all sorts of things. He also runs a flour mill. He's also a bus conductor. He does many things. Anyway, I was walking towards where he works, next to the post office. And on the side of the road, I saw a dog, and I've seen many dogs in India over the years in various states of, disease and sickness and so forth, but I'd never seen a dog like this. It was lying completely motionless, and most of the skin of the fur had gone. The ribs were showing right through. It was covered with discoloration marks, and it was almost as though there was a kind of little hole in its head, a wound there, where perhaps a stone had been thrown at it. It didn't look necessarily like another dog had done it, but there it was on the side of the road. Someone had put a stone container there, which had a little water in it. But the dog, it was the worst I've ever seen any dog in India or the world. It looked like it could die any moment. So really, I felt very, wretched, very hopeless. I couldn't do anything. I felt. I just recited a few mantra. Then I decided to go to this shop, which is next to where this friend is. I was going to meet, and I bought some biscuits, thinking to moisten a biscuit or two with some of the water and see if the dog could lick some of it or eat it. Of course, in one sense, a kind of pathetic gesture, considering the state the dog was in. It was really it's moments like that where one feels, what can I do to help another being? So anyway, I was thinking to do that, and I bought the biscuits. I was coming back down, and when I came back, there was absolutely no sign of the dog. Now, it's impossible that it would have got up and gone away. That's impossible. It didn't seem to. It didn't. I'm sure that wasn't possible. So the only other alternatives were that some organization or some person came, lifted it, and took it away, and I hope didn't just put it to death or something, but took care of it for its last moments. Or else, of course, the more esoteric sort of version, if one's been reading a lot of or read and heard Buddhist stories, it could have been some kind of emanation or manifestation of a holy being who wanted to remind me that everything wasn't just roses in samsara. Whatever it was, that brought me back to earth for a little while. More than anything else. Not that I was totally up in the clouds, but just reminded me of just the incredible suffering that beings go through. And they were helpless. And of course, there are dogs like that, whether on whatever that dog was. There are animals, millions of them every day, of course, going through death when they don't want it at the hands of humans. and some dying very pitifully, awfully, with a lot of pain, a lot of fear, obviously, and just totally artificial life, artificial light, artificial everything in their lives. Um, and then they're killed. So anyway, I won't get into all of that. So anyway, our life is always showing us something sort of happy, or happy side, but then there's all these reminders of tremendous suffering, and a lot of it we don't see. A lot of it we don't see so clearly with our eyes. But I think if we're a little bit intelligent and intuitive, we can see what people are going through. We can intuit what people are going through by their manner, their body posture, their what they're doing with their hands, their fingers, their shoulders. One can often get a sense of where people are. Anyway, um, so the bottom line is, and of course, Shantideva, the author of this great text, he's a great bodhisattva. He was a great bodhisattva. So he would have, in his youthful bodhisattva career, he would have come across many, many, many suffering animals and humans and others, and for sure shed tears, as a aspiring and baby bodhisattva. I mean, when he'd actually generated bodhicitta, because we might wonder, why don't a lot of these people whom we consider bodhisattvas, why don't they just go around crying? Because there's so much suffering in the world. Well, of course, sometimes they do, but they also have great wisdom. They understand that things aren't just what is apparent, that beings, there is possibility of change and improvement. Plus, of course, there's no point uh, just crying all the time. That's not going to help, other beings that much. Anyway, Shantideva, when you think that Shantideva is a great bodhisattva and he cares for us, his readers, it said more than a mother cares for her only child. That's the nature of the bodhicitta mind that the bodhisattva has, that they care for us. Why is it considered more than a mother's care? You might say, bodhisattvas don't go around wiping our noses and our bums and holding us to their bosoms and so forth. They just sit on thrones, some of them, and teach and do things like that. So how can we say that these bodhisattvas are kinder than a mother? Well, I think part of the reason might be that they understand our potential, and therefore they are aiming out of great compassion for our long-term happiness, for our liberation and enlightenment. They're willing to go the whole length to have us reach that point. Mothers don't even think of that. They're just thinking short term. I mean, very amazing what they do, but it's short term, right? Looking after the child now and tomorrow, and maybe hoping that in old age the child will help, etc., whatever. But bodhisattvas are thinking, how can I liberate this person from all levels of suffering and bring them to highest enlightenment? So, I mean, that there is nothing touches that level of kindness. That is just extraordinary, isn't it? Imagine you had a friend who not just wanted to make you happy in all sorts of worldly ways, but you had a friend who wanted you to, have long-term happiness in this life, but also liberation from all kinds of fears and distorted mental states, and also was doing as much as they could to help you to attain awakening of a Buddha. That would be an extraordinary friend, right? That would be a very amazing friend. So Shantideva is like that kind of friend for us. So if we think of it also in that way, we can feel tremendous. Gratitude and also respect for Shantideva and other, bodhisattvas like him. Yep. Okay, so let's take a look at this text. And then we'll have some discussion. I won't do many verses today, but there's lots to discuss. We have a lot of our core team here, from Oscar Wilde, Rishi Valley, to Naveenji, Pradeep Magazine. We have Sagar. We have, of course, Ajirji. We have some new students like Aditi and Vikram. Mr. Roy is there. Nevita is there. Nishi is there. So, and Isabel Cristina, who I don't know if you're Argentinian. If so, congratulations. But anyway, welcome wherever you're from. And of course, Vishad, sorry, Vishad, all these wonderful people, Richa, Aditi, and Divya. Divya, who is wrestling with her, yeah, with some family members sometimes, is wonderful, and still coming back to our Zoom sessions. So all of you, thank you. We'll have some discussion very soon. Hope I didn't leave anybody out. Naveen, yeah. Anyway, good. So, okay, yeah. So he's talking about how attached we are to bodies when they're alive, but how come we're not attached to them when the vultures are pecking at them in the graveyards, in the cemeteries. We have verses like verse 46. Since vultures and others are eating this pile of meat that I behold, why did I offer flower garlands, sandalwood, and ornaments to that which is now the food of others? He's playing with us a little bit, there's a sense of there's a kind of a sense of humor there as well. One might think rather dark humor. If I'm frightened by the skeletons that I see, even though they don't move, why am I not frightened by walking corpses, which are moved around by a few impulses? We looked at that a bit, didn't we, yesterday? Although I'm attached to it when it is covered with skin, why don't I desire it when it's uncovered? Well, as we said, because it's different, isn't it? But he's saying that is its essence, that's its nature. Just underneath this, however thick the skin is, beneath that is something that we would not find desirable unless we're a vulture or carnivore. So why do I not desire it when it's uncovered? Since I've no need for it then, why copulate with it when it is covered? He certainly doesn't leave much to the imagination. The other translation says, why did you embrace them, all bedecked and covered? A kind of a more civilized translation. I don't know, unfortunately, what the Sanskrit was, so I can't help there, or even what the Tibetan was. From food, since both excrement and saliva arise solely from food, why do I dislike excrement and find joy in saliva? Well, think of that one. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. Pema Chodron's comment was quite earthy, wasn't it? It may be obvious why our lovers' saliva is more appealing than their shit, but think of it. A fly would find that shit very desirable. Is anything really intrinsically desirable or revolting? Meaning, if excrement was inherently revolting, then every single being should find it revolting, not just me or you. But flies don't mind it, they actually love it, And it's said that some great tantric practitioners can partake of it without it nauseating them, because of their pure vision, their pure view. They can, And as we know, we had even a prime minister of India who very much was an advertisement for drinking urine. Of course, urine is not excrement, but I'll tell you, there's plenty of people who would be appalled by the thought of drinking one's urine. but even our Prime Minister uh, was Morarji Desai. He drank his urine. I've spent times in England when I was experimenting with things, drinking urine. Of course, that didn't do me much good, but anyway, didn't kill me. So, so what he's saying is anything really intrinsically desirable or revolting? So you could think about that for our discussion. Cotton too is soft of the touch, but while I find no sexual delight in a pillow, I think that a woman's body doesn't emit a putrid odor. Lustful one, you are confused as to what is unclean. Of course, now, I mean, when you go through an airport, right, nowadays, all these modern airports, I mean, the perfume section, I mean, so many shops are devoted to perfume and stuff. Why? You know, why do we need so much perfume, deodorants? Yeah, think about it. If our body was naturally so wonderful, why do we need all these perfumes and stuff? Yeah. Very expensive too, you know. That's why I much rather buy books, you know. The perfume's incredibly expensive. Unbelievable. So then the last verse we looked at, last couple of verses we looked at yesterday. This is like they have in the serials on Netflix. You know, sometimes the first few minutes they are going back over what you saw in the last session, summarizing a bit. Of course, we cannot summarize all of it, but anyway, there's some very powerful verses here. Lustful ones, befuddled by desire, because you can't copulate with them, you angrily find fault with pillows, even though they're smooth and soft to touch. So here, according to Pema Chodron, Shantideva is addressing the heart of the problem. It is not the object, it's not the sexual object that is at fault. It's our unreasonable degree of attachment, of grasping. You know, if it wasn't for sexual desire, you know, none of us would be here, right, for this Zoom session, unless we're test tube people, but I don't think any of us are. So should we then stop, you know, having sexual relations as a species? Well, some might say, yeah, better, we should stop, you know, then the planet can recover maybe. But that's probably not on the cards. And it's not that, is it? That's the problem. It's our attitude. It's the mind behind it. You know, there are plenty of great beings, you know, who had families, and even now who are married people. They have desire, but they don't have this unreasonable, selfish, grasping desire, apparently. Yeah. And then we looked at the next verse. It's slightly different translations here. Bachelor says, if I'm not attached to what is unclean, then why do I copulate with the lower parts of others' bodies? Okay, but the other translation says, and if you have no love for filth, how can you coddle on your lap? Anyway, same meaning. Which are merely cages of bones tied together with muscles, plastered over with the mud of flesh. That's pretty, it's almost Shakespearean. Why do I copulate with the lower parts of others' bodies, which are merely cages of bones? Cages of bones, yeah. It's like some kind of bamboo structure or something. Cages of bone tied together with muscles. If you look at books on anatomy or the muscular, you know, which are focusing on the muscles of the body, it's amazing. It's an extraordinary piece of equipment, but it is just that. It's all these parts tied together with muscles, and on top of that is flesh. Yeah, of course, there are a wide variety of flesh. Sometimes I wonder, you know, because when you travel and you go to airports, especially airports where the international travelers as well, you see such a variety of human beings, size, shape, color, quality of skin, shapes of their heads, of their arms, of everything. You can see what I'm looking at when I'm at airports, right? Apart from the bookshops and the perfumes. There's, just incredible variety, of course, and some we're more attached to, some we're not. But it's just extraordinary. But it is just flesh, the mud of flesh. I don't know. I haven't studied this. I don't know how thick flesh is. I'm told women's flesh is thicker than men's flesh or has more layers, but I'm not an expert on this. Perhaps someone can tell us in the discussion. So that's what it is. It's plastered over with a mud of flesh. And as I was saying yesterday, it doesn't have to be a life-size person. It can be just as small as one of these rectangles on the screen in front of you. And even that can inspire lust. Okay, and now the reason. So you see, because he's asked the question, why do I copulate with the lower parts of others' bodies, which is just, this cage of muscles plastered over with flesh. He says the reason is, you're full of filth yourself and wallow in it constantly. It is indeed just dirt that you desire, and therefore you long for other sacks of filth. Good grief, he's really laying it on. If this was written today, some people would burn it, wouldn't they? Some people would burn this book or this chapter or this verse. They would attack, of course, the feminists and the Me Too movement would totally attack this verse if it was portrayed as a verse that was only applicable for men looking at women. When they realize it's actually the other way around too, then they might, then the men would start a Me Too movement, probably. But yeah, this is a powerful verse. He's calling us a sack of filth. Not nice, but, and this is where the expression "you're full of shit" comes from, says Pema Chodron. One has to have a sense of humor about Shantideva's arguments. Here he's saying we contain plenty of unclean stuff ourselves. So why do we hanker after others' impurities? And then the answer from the worldly person, but it's the flesh that I enjoy. Okay, then Shantideva says, if this is what I wish to touch and to behold, why do I not desire it in its natural state, devoid of any mind? Now that I find a tricky argument. Why do you not wish for flesh alone, inanimate and in its natural state? So is he saying that if you flay, if you strip the flesh, the skin off somebody, you should feel the same desire for that as you do for when it's on a body that has a mind in it? I don't think that reasoning is very powerful myself, but he may be meaning something else. Let's see what Pema Chodron says about that. Okay, this is why I'm not understanding it. Verse 54, which I just read, begins a classic analysis done to expose the nature of emptiness. Traditional example, a chariot. Where do we find the chariot's true nature? In the left wheel, the right wheel, or the seat? We can ask these same questions using the example of the body. Shantideva is questioning where the object of our lust resides. Is it in the flesh or in the perfume? If so, then why don't we lust for raw meat or pleasant smells? If it's the sandalwood smell that turns us on, we'd be foolish to confuse that smell with the body. In the same way the Buddha analyzed the chariot, Shantideva analyzed the body to find out where the body is. And where is this self or other? He then goes on to describe how we not only imbue these dreamlike lovers with desirability, we then covet them, long to copulate with them, and so on. There's something in the chat I should look at. Referring to a dead person, maybe. Okay, Isabel is from Portugal. Sorry, Isabel. Portugal didn't do too well in the World Cup, but maybe you have absolutely no interest in football, which is probably a good thing. Ronaldo, poor fellow, didn't do well. Everyone is lauding Messi. Oh, okay. Okay. Now, in this next verse, because we say, okay, it's obvious why we don't lust over a piece of flesh. What we want is a real person, by the mind. You know. Then he says, the mind of the beloved you so much desire eludes your touch. This mind you cannot see. Nothing that the sense perceives is mind. So why indulge in pointless copulation? Yeah. So now you really do have to keep on remembering that Shantideva is addressing monks. And if he was a nun, an abbess in a nunnery, he'd be addressing nuns, talking about the shortcomings of having lust towards a male body. So if I say it's my lover's mind I'm attracted to, well then, where exactly is that? Is that mind? Which part of your lover's mind do you love? There are 51 mental factors, at least. Of course, there are many more, but 51 main mental factors. There are omnipresent mental factors. There are 6 consciousnesses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch consciousness, and the mental consciousness. And then which aspect of the mental consciousness do you love? Okay, if you love your lover's voice, well, that is just vibrations coming out of a sound box in the throat, and coming to your ears. And it means nothing to many other people. They couldn't care less what the person you are attached to is saying, and dogs and cats neither. So what exactly is going on? What kind of tomfoolery is going on? I mean, aren't we being hallucinated? Aren't we hallucinating? Shantideva is asking. And of course, from the middle way philosophy point of view, we are hallucinating. We're hallucinating 24/7. Until we realize emptiness, we are hallucinating. Because every moment is similar to that definition I gave yesterday of attachment. A mistaken mind that exaggerates. This is what we're engaging in all the time. Mistaken mind that exaggerates. Either attractive qualities or non-attractive qualities, etc. To fail to understand the unclean nature of another's flesh is not perhaps so strange, but not to see the filthy nature of oneself is very strange indeed. Yeah. Yeah, we don't mind picking our own noses. And I even had a friend once, who liked to eat the snot out of his nose sometimes. I was appalled. I shouted at him. But other people's muck, other people's stuff, yeah, we don't like. But one's own, we're not so upset with our own excrement and this and that. Yeah. But Shantideva was saying it's all in the nature of something not clean, unclean. Why does the mind, intent on filthiness, neglect the fresh young lotus blossom, opened in the sunlight of a cloudless sky, to take joy in rather than in a sack of dirt? They're saying, if you want beauty, why don't we lust after a lotus blossom? If it's beauty we want. One more verse, one or two, then we'll discuss. Since I don't wish to touch a place that is smeared with excrement, why do I wish to touch the body from which that excrement arose? And if I'm not attached to what is unclean, then why do I copulate with the lower parts of others' bodies, which arise from the unclean field of a womb and are produced by the seeds within it? The other translation, and if you have no craving for impurity, why will you now embrace and kiss what comes from such an unclean place, engendered likewise from an unclean seed? The unclean place referred to here is the womb. The unclean seed is the semen. In our culture, many people don't have aversion to these things, but in India, in Shantideva's time, apparently everyone did. This, in fact, proves Shantideva's point. Aversion and attraction are frequently based on cultural bias and are not in any way absolute realities. And from a tantric point of view, these are all objects of offering: excrement, semen, blood, flesh. These are all tantric offerings. And people who are real yogis, they actually, can utilize these substances and to generate more wisdom, and certainly not any kind of aversion. But we are not yogis yet. I'm not a yogi, so this is, yeah. So, right, let's discuss now. Let's have some discussion now. Oh, there's some things we can discuss here. And welcome to latecomers like Aruna Vasudevji. Very late today, but forgiven as ever. But I don't know why you're so late, but it's okay. You're writing that book, aren't you? So, and I can't hear you. If you're remonstrating, I can't hear you. You have to unmute. Okay, anybody? You can all unmute yourselves now.
No. I'm saying I was having trouble connecting. There's something wrong with my phone.
But I see you're in San Francisco now. So wow.
No.
You get around.
I'm very much in Delhi.
Okay, you have the
Very much in Delhi. Yes.
nice bridge behind you. Okay.
I want to come and see you.
Well, you'll have to see my secretary, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. May or may not be granted.
Yes.
Anyway,
Right.
I'm off to Bodh Gaya day after tomorrow, so you should come to Bodh Gaya later.
Oh, okay. I would like to very much. You're in Bodh Gaya now?
No, I will be day after tomorrow. I'm leaving Delhi. Yeah.
You're leaving tomorrow?
Day after tomorrow.
So tomorrow,
anyway,
tomorrow I can come and see you. Oh, please, Kabirji, let me come and see you tomorrow.
We should not advertise our love affair on a Zoom session, Arunaji. Yes, not good. Yes.
So sorry. My apologies.
Especially after what Shantideva is saying, you know.
Yes, my deepest apologies.
Okay.
I'll be quiet.
Yes.
Not a word.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Let's have some discussion on something connected with either motivation, of course, or these verses we looked at, these extraordinary verses which go on and on for quite a bit. You know, it's not finishing where we finished. It goes on. Yeah, it goes on and on until verse 85. And then 85 is like a kind of, I don't know. And then there's, he's talking about people who have, due to all of this meditation, have developed a sense of disillusion and wish for solitude, you know. I should generate joy for having in this way developed disillusionment with desire. I should generate joy for solitude. The fortunate ones stroll in peaceful forests, devoid of disputes and disturbing conceptions. Anyway, that's later. We have to go through the fire first. and then we'll appreciate the scented forests. Yes, yes. Okay, so anything, folks?
Kabirji, I always find Shantideva very troublesome when he does his scared tracks. I do see the point of this, but uh, with afflictive emotions, including lust, I think we need to have a better approach for this, where any of these things, it's almost like we're criminalizing it in our mind rather than trying to embrace it, trying to watch it and reach a point where it'll dissolve itself. So, and this is not something which he would not know himself. So it is almost very difficult to use with online.
Devi. No,
Okay, I think Aruna is talking to her dog and not to you, Naveenji. Yeah, did you mention criminalization at one point?
Yeah, it's almost akin to that, right? I mean, you just go on a particular emotion rather than engage with it positively and try to watch it and have a healthy relationship with your afflictions.
He's not talking to erudite professors from IIT. He's talking to monks, who are being brainwashed as monks
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
for good or ill. So, but according to Buddha, his teachings, he says that when the monks and nuns are no longer there, then the Dharma is no longer there. So that is also something to think about. But yeah, of course, you're going to have a different attitude. You're a married man with two daughters and a wife and stuff. So of course, you have a different attitude from Shantideva. But I might say that Shantideva, yeah, in one phase of his life, was a monk and at Nalanda monastery, but he was also a Mahasiddha, and a tantric practitioner. So there's no reason to think that he remained a monk all his life, by the way. Just to let you know, he's not someone like, Kamalashila or, Shantarakshita, who are well-known, distinguished scholars and monks, throughout their life. Also, Lama Tsongkhapa was a monk throughout his life. People like that were monks, but Shantideva, I don't necessarily think he was a monk till the end. He left Nalanda, even though they said, please stay, he'd had enough of them, of that environment. People who, were putting him down and trying to humiliate him after all. That's where this text came out of, that was the circumstances that brought about the text, yeah? They were trying to humiliate him and he comes out with this text. So he left Nalanda and as a Mahasiddha, with his realization, anything is possible. And of course, when he could have given back his monastic vows and so forth. But yeah, but I totally understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. But you have to look at the logic also. And you have to think more about the difficulties and problems and the sheer frustration and anger and jealousy and all kinds of other emotions and experiences that can arise as a result of being consumed by desire. Any kind of desire, but here especially sexual desire. How much difficulty that causes in the world, just think about it. Think about it. The desperation of many people, the rape, the this, the that, and it's just it's extraordinary. And it just creates a kind of cage for people also, and a kind of lovelessness. When desire is very strong and there isn't a corresponding, what should we say, love, compassion, etc. What is it, That's the thing. So maybe one has to see what he's saying and the consequences of ordinary desire, meaning unenlightened desire or desire without good motivation, desire without tenderness and kindness. We have to look at that, isn't it? Don't you think? Not.
For sure, I see the logic, of course. But every time I emphasis. It's almost like, he should be a Bollywood scriptwriter. Sagar would be very happy.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think people like Sagar should be working on text like this, actually, or snippets of it. And definitely now, up to now, we have no graphic novel of Shantideva's text. Is a big lack. I think we should bring out editions from each chapter of Shantideva would really warrant a little graphic novel, graphic text for beginners who like pictures and then slowly get into the text. There's so much there. Imagine what you could do with this chapter. Unbelievable. I mean, it would attract many people who are there to look at, the dirty pictures, but then they could gradually be taken towards the second half of this chapter, which is about exchanging self and others, which is amazing. And then, of course, all the other glories of this text. Yeah.
Kabirji, Kabirji.
Ah,
Yeah.
that sounds like
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde, although you're looking like a traffic warden. That's the kind of dress. Sorry. English. Yeah.
No,
Sorry,
actually,
no legs in the way.
can you?
Yeah.
No, can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly?
Probably as clearly as we're going to get. Yeah, pretty clear. Considering you're so
Okay.
far away in Andhra Pradesh, pretty good. Yep.
Yeah. So see, I just wanted you to say, like, tell me if my understanding is correct, and then another question related to that. So what he's trying to say is that suppose like there is no inherent happiness in an object in this world. For instance, there's a bottle of alcohol, right? Now there is no inherent happiness in that. An alcoholic will it will give joy to an alcoholic, but to a priest it will be revolting, right? So we can't say that there is something.
Priest?
Yeah, exactly.
Catholic priest.
Like to
Oh, I'm not sure.
no,
But I'll let you.
no.
Yeah.
Like to an Indian pandit, like it will be revolting, right?
Indian Pandit.
Yeah, the temple priest.
Temple priest.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm sure they
yeah.
have a bit as well,
Yeah,
Anyway.
so it will be revolting, right? So there is no inherent, like, so we can the question then that arises is that whether it is there is happiness in it or sadness in it, but there is nothing, right? That is, it is in your mind, it is in your attachment or aversion. So where does attachment, and that is what he's saying, isn't it? So where does attachment and aversion, they arise in our mind, and they become the reason for our happiness or sadness. But what is the thinking behind attachment or aversion? How do they arise? Like, do I repeatedly think that, okay, this object of my desire is going to give me the happiness, right? Is that correct?
Okay, now this is the situation where the so-called teacher gives a question back to the student, whom the teacher feels should definitely know the answer. So please give me the definition of attachment. And if you give me the definition, that contains the answer. What's the definition? We've repeated it countless times on these Zoom sessions. In your presence.
Okay, so attachment is the, like, mistaken mind, which exaggerates the positive qualities of its object of desire.
Yeah, like that. The attractive qualities, and thinks it's going to give me happiness and wants to possess it.
Yeah.
There's the answer there, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So like, yeah. But if, like, we can tackle it, one of the ways of tackling it or fight, like, kind of subduing such a mind can also be like by repeatedly thinking that these objects, they don't contain the happiness which I've been seeking or looking for, right? Like
So
any object in this,
that's
object in the sense of.
They've been talking about in all these verses.
Okay. Yeah.
He's talking about the negative consequences. That's always there in the background, and that's there in our life. I mean, we're all grown-ups. We've all had experiences now of desire for something or someone, and then being disappointed at the very least, or being tortured by that wanting mind, that desirous mind. whether it was for a person or an object or a toy that one wanted as a child, and mommy, daddy said, no, you can't have it, or they gave us something which wasn't as good as the thing we wanted. We've all had experience of where desire leads us, right? It's just that when we're adults, and when it comes to sexual desire, this is one of the most potent sources for frustration, anger, disease, violence, murder, you name it. Long court cases, wars. If you're a leader, then in the past, sexual desire has led to wars, right? For sure, at least, small wars between clans, if not between countries sometimes. Just look at the literature. I mean, it's littered with the negative consequences of desire, and especially sexual desire. I mean, it's lucky we're not all public health officials who have made a special study of venereal disease. I'm sure we'd be horrified by the amount of disease in the world, and what it's doing to people's bodies and minds, So, yeah, due to the mistaken mind that is exaggerating, as he says, it leads us to hell. Whether it's attachment or anger, it leads us to hell, different kinds of hell. Yeah.
Shantideva worked on all the faculties of the mind.
Sorry, sir, what did you say?
Shantideva worked on and researched all the faculties of the mind, when gone deep. But Nagarjuna speak on the psychological way.
Yes, he was a master of the mind, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He knew the mind inside out. And because he was a bodhisattva with clairvoyance, he knows other people's minds. So actually, in answer to your question, Ajinji, if you have that kind of clairvoyance, you don't need to be a married person to know exactly how a married person feels. According to that, if you have clairvoyance, you know the minds of others. You know their happiness, you know their suffering, you know their frustrations, because that's what clairvoyance is. You know. And of course, if you have a high level of it, you know very precisely what other people are going through. So you don't have to be a married or a lustful layperson to know what they experience. You just have to be a clairvoyant monk. That would be one argument. Clairvoyance, that's what clairvoyance is. You know, clear seeing without having to be told anything. Go through it oneself. So that's also something to consider. Of course, you may not feel that clairvoyance is possible or valid, but according to Buddhism, it's just something that comes anyway. It's a byproduct of very deep levels of attention. And, shamatha is just a byproduct. It's not considered an incredibly high realization on its own, unless it's united with, compassion and wisdom. Yeah. What else, folks? There's still time. It's only 8 o'clock. No calls for dinner yet. Vishad, how are you, Vishad bhai?
नमस्ते कबीर जी, all good. How are you?
Good. आप कहाँ हैं आजकल?
मेरठ में कबीर जी. अभी तो
Oh, yeah, fine. Go ahead. Thanks.
Kabir ji.
Yes, Ajir ji.
Yeah, I think I really feel what we have been reading these verses. To me, it really appears that what he is really trying to put forth is the choice between the spirituality and the sexuality. There's the energy of life where this is to be really directed. And if we are directing this energy toward the spiritual pursuit, then it is liberating in nature. But if you are diverting it or channelizing towards the sexuality, it's a enslaving in nature. That means the continuation in the worldly cycle. And to me, it really appears that Shantideva knew the minds of the people. Now, when I read some of the people who have been in the deep meditation, they all advise that after some time, some of the deepest instinct, like the sexual urges, may come up. And some of the people, they have really written also that they start seeing some, what is that called? The erotic visuals. So I think the Shantideva is really putting forth that you are all on the spiritual pursuit. And at the deeper level, he's doing a kind of surgery, create a kind of revulsion and deal as a dirt when these type of things arises in your deeper practice.
That's true, I think, but also, don't you think, Ajirji, on just a very practical level, if one is involved in sexual relationships, it takes a lot of, energy. It takes a lot of energy, mental energy, physical energy.
Yes, yes.
I think all of the research, it's more tiring for the man than the woman, So, and then why did Lord Buddha give up his wife? If from Mahayana point of view, he's already enlightened when he came into the world. Why on earth does he have to leave his wife and go into the forest and become a monk and so forth? And it's, I think, very clear, because for ordinary people, as you're saying, as I think you're implying, sexual desire is not only distracting, but also it's very debilitating.
It's a mistaken mind. It's a mistaken mind.
Everything's a mistaken mind in that sense.
So I think in this, Shantideva, particularly when he is really addressing to the monks, I feel that he is really seeing the deep down when these people are doing the practice or they are walking on the path, all these urges may come up. So I think he is really creating a kind of deep revulsion.
Well, also there are monks, they have vows. They have to keep their vows. If they don't keep their vows, they're no longer monks. So he has to also scare them.
It's a scare,
But let me ask you a question. If Shantideva were addressing lay people, how would he address this issue, do you think, of sexuality? And
I think
lay people, only lay people.
If it's only the lay people, then he would really put a lot of emphasis on the ethical part.
Meaning? Could you?
Meaning no sexual misconduct. I think he would put a lot of emphasis on that. He will put a lot of emphasis on that.
So you can have sex, but not sexual misconduct.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Ajirji, that might not be enough, I feel. Yes, definitely no sexual misconduct, but also a certain ethic of sexual union for your mind, in a way that you try to take into account self-grasping, which happens in sexual unions a lot of times. So even when we are holding ourselves to a monogamous relationship, for instance, even there you could have a certain amount of grasping which comes in, try to control. And so I think we need to also think about how to address that.
I think when he is really talking of the sexual misconduct, I really find that they're very graphic details. I think I really would not like to go into that, in the sense that the right time, right place, and in the right way. There's a lot of
details.
Notes there.
There's a lot of details.
The time, place, motivation, all this is really there. Because he is giving, he knows that the lay people have this. So he is really putting a kind of the boundary. Okay, at least instead of really creating and going haywire, can you really restrict within that? I mean, that's a kind of the ethical boundaries he is really putting it.
Yeah. And also, yeah, I think this is a very fruitful subject where people should study more, also different, because in the Taoist tradition and others, they're also very, very intelligent commentaries on sexual energy and so forth. And the fact is that most people waste it, you know. And from a tantric point of view, semen and sexual elements are very precious. They should not be allowed as much as possible to leave the body. You know, if they're conserved inwards, then they lead to spiritual growth, or they can. But these are very esoteric sort of teachings and practices, you know. But yes, sexual energy is incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
used, it just makes us kind of addicted or tired and kind of lack of creative, or so we have to be very careful with it. But since it's energy, if it is used well, then it's like rocket fuel. It can help us leave samsara quicker. But
Vajrayana's tantric practitioner uses. Kabirji, Vajrayana tantric practice uses such thing to reach immediate enlightenment.
Not immediate.
Means not immediate exactly, but quick enlightenment.
Possible, but it's like being a rocket scientist who's not very skilled yet or mature. Your rocket, if it goes haywire, then it causes a lot of destruction, or it goes up and comes right down immediately and kills a lot of people, or it explodes on takeoff. So one has to be very careful, I'm sure, with rocket technology. It's like having a snake, they say in the tantric tradition, a snake in a bamboo. If the snake goes one way, it kills you. If it goes the other way, it's okay, but it can also kill you. So anyway, this is not a province here to talk about Vajrayana.
Similar, Savidam spoke about the same thing, similar. Huh? Shiva and Shakti in Hindu traditions. They use to get enlightenment.
I think all we have to remember for now is that all of our energy, whether it's sexual or the energy of our eyes, looking, tasting, touching, we are expending it so much. We are spending so much time on outward, right? And our sexual energy is also going outward. And the spiritual traditions are saying, keep all this inside and use it to nourish your own inner spirit, to put it in general language. Don't waste it, and also don't waste it in the sense of think about it too much, because that's wasting mental energy and creating the wrong kinds of mental imprints, because mental imprints also don't just disappear. We might say, oh, I don't commit any sexual misconduct, but if we are doing it in our mind, in our imagination, or thinking about these things too much in our mind, that is also creating a very, very powerful imprint in consciousness, which can have a unwholesome effect. So yeah, Shantideva's text is bringing up all these issues. This is one of the most important things to reflect on and think about very intelligently. Not emotionally. Sorry?
This question, Kabirji was asked to Krishnamurti also, by one of his earliest students. I think if you remember, he was a very good photographer also. Some Mehta. He was very young. I think he was 21 or 20 years old, and he was a good photographer. So he asked the same thing: how does one deal with this sexual energy? Of course, the answer given by Krishnamurti, I think to follow that would be very difficult. He said that when that energy arises, just be with that energy without any movement. That energy will become very healing and empowering. But the normal tendency is to...
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
Can you repeat that, Ajirji, that last sentence?
Yeah, what he said is that when that energy is arising, can one be just in that energy with no movement?
Observe it, look at it or whatever without movement, without movement of mind.
No movement at all, just be that. Then he said that that energy gets sublimated and it will become empowering rather than depleting in nature. Yeah, it's quite difficult for the normal people because the flow of the energy or the impulse is so strong.
Yeah, we want to act out. Yeah,
exactly. But this is what the reply which was given by him, which is one of the ways if one can really follow that.
Yeah, not to act out, not to suppress, to be in the middle.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. Very difficult.
That becomes a kind of the sublimation.
Yeah, so can we also say that based on the nature, if like we can change or transform sexual energy into spiritual energy based on by reorienting our desires or by based on the nature of our desires, is it okay to say that?
Is one of your children calling you?
Yeah, I think I will just go and check. Is it okay? Like I will just check. I will.
You
just
have
join
many
it
children.
100%.
You have yes, many children. Yeah, now, yeah, okay. Samsung SM, yeah. Kabir, got to run. Yes, probably your wife's calling you, so or dinner, so you better run. Yeah. Thanks for joining. We'll have some messages on the post to look at because this may be one of the last sessions for a while.
Okay.
But there will be some more. I can't bear the thought of not seeing you all at all until the 6th of January. So we will do something in between.
Thanks a lot, Kabirji. Thanks.
विक्रम जी आज कुछ नहीं कह रहे हैं भाई, इनका बड़ा strong reaction था कल.
No strong reactions. I mean, I'll leave you just with one thought, and that is, Shantideva, to the untutored layperson, sounds like a bit of a sort of monkish misogynist. And of course, that's not what he probably was in reality. But I do worry, just like in the Catholic Church, where you have a strong clerical tradition that sort of talks a lot about men restraining themselves, not necessarily women, and sort of elevates celibacy to this very sort of high level, identifies celibacy with spiritual growth. I wonder whether you aren't just overdoing it a little bit, and in a way creating artificial distinctions between lay people, priests, and others. After all, look, sex is just one of a number of things. Aren't we sort of overdoing it here, both with regard to the pleasures of sex as well as the problems of sex? So I think in a way Shantideva is rather unbalanced, and I think that the thing is, I think as Kabirji says,
you think he's rather imbalanced.
Unbalanced, and I think, but that we can excuse that because he is a monk addressing monks. But they shouldn't feed into a misogynistic view of women, and it certainly should not segregate lay people off from the rest of those who have sort of privileged access to enlightenment through their position in the Sangha or the Catholic Church at the expense of women. So I find this whole thing rather problematic, but on the other hand, take it in its spirit. It's an 8th century text, and that's fine. And it certainly is interesting to read.
Yeah, interesting to read. Yeah, it's not boring. You have to go in a hurry, so I'll just say this. I understand very much what you're saying, because I've been both a monk and a layperson in this life, and right now back to layperson. But I think if we study more about desire and attachment and its shortcomings, study more about it, think more about it, then one might feel a little bit more sympathy for Shantideva's position. And I don't think you need fear that he's in any sense a misogynist. Many monks, I'm sure, are. Some may be. some maybe. He wasn't, because he was a Mahasiddha.
Right.
That monk was just one of his manifestations in that life. He is not to be pointed at as being a misogynist, I think, far from it.
Right,
But
right.
when speaking to monks, he's kind of telling them, look, if you want to be a good monk, this is how you're going to have to think for the time being. Because if you don't, you're in trouble. You know, later when you become more realized, you know, all sorts of other things can, you know. But right now, to keep your vows, you have to think this way about a woman's body. And in many ways, it is true. And this is what, if Shantideva had been a woman, a nun, this is what he would have told, she would have told her nuns, you know, and then you'd be calling it anti-men. You know? So I think, whatever the word is for being anti-men, I can't remember the word. What is it if you're anti-men? Is there a word? Anyway, whatever. So then he would, you know, she would come across that way. Like
Possibly.
Is a male or female?
As anti-men, actually.
Kabirji, Shantideva was a male or female?
Haji?
Shantideva was male or female?
Ah, now that's a good question. I'm glad you're confused. This shows
Beyond.
Shantideva is universal. जबकि आपको पता नहीं कि वो आदमी है औरत है, ये बहुत अच्छी बात है मेरे लिए तो. It shows how his text is more universal. How about that, Vikramji? Not only is he not misogynist, but he may be this, he may be that.
Well, I'm not going to call him sort of androgynous. I think I let me not go too far here.
Your dinner's been improved, my
Kabir,
friend.
great session. I hope you have another one soon.
We will. Yes, yes.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care.
Keep the pot boiling. Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay, Kabirji, we will meet at Bodh Gaya.
Yes, if you're going there, I hope we can meet.
I am going on 27th.
Acha, good. Where are you staying?
Still not decided. There is so many friends here. There also.
Okay, good.
If
good.
there is a dormitory also available at Tushita.
Root Institute is completely full. Yes, Root Institute is completely full, but you will find something somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I know. So
Okay.
yeah, get in touch. Come to Root Institute and we'll meet. So lie or an artha or tilkut khayenge ek saath.
We will go together at the session. The Dalai Lama.
That is the one form of attachment that is good, you know, attachment to those 3 Bihari sweets, that is allowed.
Yeah. And Khaja of Shila.
Khaja bhi le aayenge to aur bhi anand hoga.
It was very favorite of Lord Buddha.
Yes. This is a village near Nalanda.
Nalanda, Mahavira.
A particular sweet, yeah, called Khaja. Yeah. Very sweet.
If you will put one coin on the khajan, it will cross all the 7-8 layers. So thin.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you are also a connoisseur of these things. Very good. Okay, anything else? We can go on a little. If you want to discuss the text, Shantideva, or aspects of motivation. Otherwise, we can also stop. Maybe it's good to stop and think about what we've discussed.
Okay.
More.
Yes.
We
will dedicate dedications.
So yeah, shall we do that? Good. So
yes,
let's dedicate that we find deeper and deeper understanding of this text and what Shantideva is getting at. May we, whatever, may we be of great benefit to others, or more and more benefit to other sentient beings who, like you and me, just want to be happy, don't want to suffer. May we never be separated from authentic dharma and authentic teachers. And may the dharma last for inconceivable length of time on this planet. May all the teachers, great beings have long and healthy lives, and all their wishes be fulfilled. Their dharma wishes for us be fulfilled. May all of us be well and happy, and always have the opportunity to practice, study, reflect, and practice as much as we can. may we always find the support of the Sangha, other Kalyan Mitras, so that our study, reflection, and practice can continue unhindered. Of course, may the sublime mind of Bodhichitta, where it has not arisen, arise, and where it has already arisen, may it grow more and more.